Hello and welcome to After Sound Review, and this is my review for PMV PP. If you don't know, this PMV PP is actually a quite new brand that released a planar magnetic IM which costs around 170 bucks. So it's using single planar dynamic for each side. Okay, just like usual, I will review them from the build, fit, frequency response, sound, and comparison. Right from the build quality, for me this IM looks very tough thanks to its metal body, and it feels quite good. It feels smooth and convincing. It has some convincing weight on it, but it feels also smooth everywhere, so it doesn't really hurt your ears. And also the nozzle is made of metal, so everything in its housing feels convincing for me, and I bet they will last quite long. And the cable is 8-core braided. I think it's using copper material, I guess, judging from its color. And when it comes to fitting, for me, this is, even though it looks quite big, for me it feels really good in my ears. It's quite stable and I could wear them for hours, so yeah, it's simply good. Okay, let's just talk about the frequency response. Okay, for the frequency response of the PMV PP, I could simply say that they are warm-ish. You might even consider them a little bit dark because it has emphasized more on the bass and also on the mid-range around 2K, and after that there's definitely roll off in the upper mid-range to treble area around here, so you don't really get a lot of sparkle around this area. And I have to say this, in my case, when I tried the PMV PP, somehow it sounds a little bit grainy for my ears, and I'm a bit wondering whether it's because of the cable or not. But here's what happened when I changed it to the LiQWYD, and I'm using LiQWYD Morning Sky here, and this is an average measurement, so I have measured them a few times and this is the result. So it always that the LiQWYD one has more linear frequency response, especially around the upper mid-range to treble area around here. You can see that the one with the stock cable looks like more rocky road around this area, but the PM with LiQWYD, it somehow, and it sounds cleaner too. So I don't know whether I got the defect cable or what, but that's what I hear. And if you get the same thing, for me, you need to, I really recommend you to try another cable with that. And it's even more cleaner when I try using a balanced cable, but I have to say sorry that I cannot measure my balance cable through my rig. And this is how is it compared to the Harman is neutral moondrop KXXS. This is one of the mainstream tuning right now, I believe. You can see that the moondrop KXXS has less mid-bass and also more upper mid-range to treble area. So for me, it has more sparkle and more forward in the upper mid-range in the moondrop KXXS. And this is how is it compared to the final audio A4000, which is, for me, sounds like the complete opposite for it, because the PMV PP, it's more thick sounding on the mid-range, and after that you'll get a treble roll-off, while the A4000 in this is the opposite. You don't really get a lot of mid-range thickness around here, but you get upper mid-range forwardness and also treble forward in both here. So one will sound really thick and rolled off in the treble area, and one will sound extended and bright in the upper mid-range to treble area. So it's like the complete opposite of for the final audio A4000. So yeah, before I continue to talk about the sound of this IM, for me, one thing that shocked me the most is how they are different using different cables. Actually, it's quite rare for me to recommend changing cables like this, but that's exactly what I hear. As you have seen through the frequency response, it gets better with third-party cable compared to its stock cable. In this case, I'm using this LiQWYD Morning Sky in the measurement, which shows that immediately when I change them, the frequency is simply better. And that's actually what I hear. The most difference happens in the upper mid-range to treble area, which is less grainy compared to its stock cable. I don't usually recommend you to change cable, but for me it's really noticeable, especially when you trap them with this cable. And then one thing that shocked me again is actually how they sound much better when using balanced connection and more high powered source. Like in my example, when I'm using this 4.4 balanced cable from LiQWYD, again this is the LiQWYD flower, and compared to its stock cable, somehow I think planar does needs more energy, it does needs more power to give the best out of it. And in this case I truly agree 100%, and it's actually what happened to me also in the past when I'm reviewing the Tin Planar 2 or Tin P2, Tin P, also Tin P1. And also I have ever tried some of the Audizi's planar IM such as iSign or maybe the LCD i4. They all need power, and that's exactly what happened with this IM2. When I'm changing them using the single-ended to this flower brocade cable from LiQWYD using the 4.4 balance through my iBasso DX160, the difference is really clear. Now the graininess is gone, and also I get much better separation and also soundstage. So yeah, even though it doesn't come with the 4.4 balance cable, I really encourage you, when you try them, please try use another cable, because that's what the bottleneck in this IM is the cable, simply for me. And okay, right from the sound, for me this is a really warm planar IM. I can't help but think that I always feel that timbre for this IM is quite light, just like when I tried the Tin P1 or the Tin P2, and like the other planar IMs, the timbre is quite different from a dynamic driver IM like the moondrop KXXS. For me, it somehow feels lighter in tone, even though they are warmer than this KXXS. This timbre is like comparing, maybe I'm a pianist, so I could give you some comparison like the when I play keyboard and then I play piano. The piano will always sound more, it has more body, it has more convincing weight tone on it, even though when I'm playing the same notes. I think that's exactly what happened here. For me, these planar IMs always have this kind of lighter notes, just like the keyboard when I play them, compared to the dynamic driver IMs. Dynamic driver IMs usually has better weight on it. So yeah, this like the piano. I hope you understand, and that's always happen in this kind of drivers, no matter what kind of tuning they are. Okay, the bass actually sounds really good, and it could reach deep with good authority, and also it has quite good speed on it. I think that's again thanks to its driver. And this is what I noticed again, using the balance cable, using more power can gives you better speed and better bass depth, also better focus. Again, it's really recommended for you to try them using balance cable or high source power. For me, the vocal can be a quite of a mixed bag, because it's definitely on the warmer side. It's more towards the male vocal rather than the female vocal, thus making it simply more suitable for more weighty sounds. For example, like the Il Divo, Ed Sheeran, or maybe Josh Groban. It can gives you this better naturality. For me, it's more natural, and comparing them with the female vocals such as Olivia Ong or Diana Krall, for me it lacks upper mid-range, so the vocal cannot really breathe and not really open. When it comes to female vocals, it's a bit muted on the upper register. So yeah, I don't really recommend them for female vocals. And when it comes to the treble section, it definitely have this kind of planar signature to it, because the treble is on the laid back side, but you can hear this kind of spatial extension that only planar and electrostatic driver has. So you can hear this kind of shimmering cymbal crash at the end, but the cymbal crash itself, it's not really forward, so it's just quite have this in the end, and it quite extended for violins, and you get this kind of airiness, but in the positioning, the treble itself is not really forward. And when it comes to technicality, I should say that it's really different when I'm using the single-ended compared to the balanced. The single-ended sounds much congested, and it's like a small ball in soundstage. It doesn't really have this big soundstage, or it doesn't have, the soundstage is simply small for me when using the single-ended. But when I'm using the balanced connection, it's much more expansive. Now I can really hear also the separation, it's much better. So when you hear the orchestral musics, or when you hear live music, for example the Hotel California, now it's much more convincing, and also it has better depth and much better detail. So again, I really encourage you to buy them only if you have balanced cable and high power source. And how is it compared to moondrop KXXS? For me, when it comes to comparison, the moondrop KXXS can give better detail and also cleaner background, but it's only about if we are talking using them using single-ended cable on them. For me, the KXXS is definitely the better one. The vocal is more open, even though it's more thinner, and the bass is also deeper and more focused. And the treble, again, it's a little bit more airy in this PMV PP, but it's a little bit more energetic in the moondrop KXXS. But overall, I pick moondrop KXXS, especially if we're talking about using the single-ended only. But if we're talking about using the balanced cable on both of them, I can hear that they are on the same level, but the PMV PP is simply much more warmer compared to the KXXS. And the KXXS is the more brighter one. It's, you know, the Harman-ish neutral IM, yeah, it's like that. And for me still, when I want to hear female vocals, for me it's more suitable to use the KXXS, while the male vocals and maybe some of you that are really sensitive to high notes, and some of you that don't really fond of thin sound, this could be a perfect IM for you, because it's not really expensive, but it could give you such a good quality of detail, especially on the balanced cable. For me, I think that's all. For the conclusion, the bottleneck in this IM is definitely the cable. I really suggest you to change them. If you have any question, please write down in the comment below, and see you next time. Bye bye.